Under the Trudeau regime,
The New World Order agenda.
Canadian insight.
Without free thought, there's no free will. We can't even say that this is Democrats or Republicans.
That is not a left-wing, right-wing issue.
It's a world economy fool.
Communist warfare, communist warfare, communist warfare.
Canada's reputation. Fifth generation warfare.
The line between citizen and soldier is gone.
Are we live, folks?
Oh, yeah. How's it going, y'all? Welcome to the Liberty North show, where we gather and offer you insight on this global war, but through a Canadian perspective. We're into studying this fifth generation war. So we're glad to have you here. We're going to get deep into it today. How's it going, Michael?
It's going great, man. Simon, good to be here. So we got a good show coming up for you guys. Just want to make a commentary on the fifth generation warfare that we talk a lot about, which is what our focus is, because there is really a war going on, and it's a lot more abstract than it's ever been, right? It's not the feet boots on the ground warfare, but a good frame of reference for it is what the ultimate goal is, or what the ultimate result is. And when there is an actual war that is physical human contact, the ultimate result is going to be despotism. It's going to be decay. It's going to be people that are oppressed, poverty. The same thing is the goal here. So we have to understand that we're actually at war, and it's this abstract thing that we need to bring into context. So that was commentary on that. Today we got a stacked show. We got Pierre Poilievre kicked out of Parliament, which was epic. He doubled down on his WACKO comments. That is a good one. Trudeau scandals, another one came up. This guy, I think he's at 6 now. We got the Liberals that are investing in $5 billion into Honda's EVs debacle. Who knows? They're obsessed with climate change. We're going to go over that. And AstraZeneca admits to jab injuries finally. And this is happening in court. So we're going to go over that in a second. Stick around. We have a good show for you guys. All right, we're back.
I was just having some freedom water right now, funnily enough.
Man, honestly, nothing to get me pumped for one of these shows like freedom water.
Let's see.
What reinforce freedom, baby.
Well, yeah, freedom to speak, freedom to drink. That's a good one. One of my faves.
Absolutely. The liberal tears one is my favorite. I got to bring liberal tears everywhere. Got to mess with my liberal friends. So first on the docket today, we got Trudeau. To set the stage for Pierre Poilievre getting kicked out of Parliament, there is the discussion about the drug policy in Ontario. They are trying to decriminalize heroin and fentanyl, which is, it's a good idea. Just, fentanyl. Let's get it into the hands of everybody.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah. So Trudeau is trying to call out Pierre Poilievre, trying to distract from everything as usual, trying to call out his association with Diagolon and Alex Jones, calling them conspiracy theorists, blah, blah, blah. Let's run the clip, production.
Yeah, this clip was interesting to see, because this issue has, of course, been building in Canada, right? It started out in BC. So Ontario is receiving sort of some of the policies that were first tested out in British Columbia. It's
devastating, the results of it, right?
Oh, I mean, it's funny because it really didn't work out there. It doesn't seem to have helped. I believe overdose deaths went up. But then, they're going to try it here anyway.
And that's what we're going to see Pierre mention in the House. So let's run the clip.
In regards to Pierre Poilievre, anyone who wants to be prime minister of this country needs to be clear with Canadians about whose votes he wants and who he stands with. If Pierre Poilievre wanted to be a responsible leader, I'll even give him the words. This is
It's
what
hard.
he
It's
said.
hard to listen to.
It's like a child.
I reject categorically the endorsement and the support of Diagolon and of Alex Jones. Because Diagolon is a violent white nationalist organization, and Alex Jones is a garbage conspiracy theorist. That's all Pierre Poilievre would have to say, but he won't say it. And that tells you about the kinds of choices he's making as a leader.
Unbelievable. You know, it's you always have to get through a couple layers with Trudeau. Like the first thing is just it's true how horribly annoying he just sort of is on the surface. I have to try to self-regulate so that I can actually take in what he's saying and contemplate the real implications. I have to get past like how triggering he genuinely is just as a human.
He makes my stomach churn. Ugh.
It's gross. Yeah, it really does make you feel kind of sick, especially because as a Canadian, you've experienced how duplicitous he is, what he will say and then what he will actually do, and how disassociated his words and his actions are. So every time he speaks, there is this kind of sick feeling because you know that it's manipulative. It's so obvious at this point. But in this case, you know, it's interesting to see him go back to this old CIA tactic, right? This was invented
Conspiracy
by
theory.
It is. It's using the term conspiracy theory in exactly the way the CIA engineered it when they were covering up, you know, their involvement in the assassination of JFK. And that's not my opinion. You know, it's been released by the CIA's official library. The historian with the CIA did actually release documents publicly that showed that they intentionally smeared people's character, not because these people were a danger to national security, but because they didn't want them to see their involvement in the cover-up. So they were, I think the term was hiding incendiary information from the
There you
war.
go.
So
there you go.
it is. So now, decades later, we have the Prime Minister of Canada using a CIA tactic to assassinate the character of his opponent. Interesting choice, Mr. Trudeau.
And this is how you know they're losing. This is how you know that they're freaking out, because they're trying these same old tactics that are not working. This is the tactic they used for the trucker convoy. The first thing, right? There's Nazi flags, and there's, you know, that's a whole nother discussion. That Nazi flag that was there was either a plant or it was some guy that is just, you know, wrong judgment, thinking that he's calling Trudeau a Nazi, but it looks like he's promoting Nazism. So that's a whole different story. But immediately you have one of the most loving, caring gathering of Canadians in Canadian history. People that are protesting, they have their kids there, they have they have bouncy castles and whatnot. Meanwhile, Trudeau focuses, oh, these guys are racists. It's the age-old story now. It's so bland, it's so repetitive. But so what I'd like you to break down, Simon, you know a lot more about Diagolon than I do. Jeremy Mackenzie and Diagolon. So I don't know what the actual most recent thing they're commenting on with Diagolon, but Diagolon, Alex Jones is just, you know, he's Alex Jones. I love Alex Jones just as a character. You know, he says some wacky stuff, but a lot of the stuff that he was way ahead of his time with, you know, turning the frogs gay, that's for sure. But so Diagolon, can you give me a little rundown on that?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's calling them a white nationalist violent organization, it's so untrue on so many levels that it does have to be unpacked. You know, you have Jeremy Mackenzie, who's just a streamer. He's just a Canadian streamer. He's a veteran. So he served his country. He's very patriotic. He sees the corruption ongoing. He becomes a really angry, dissenting veteran, and he builds a following online. You know, and so he's there to express his rage and his dissent. He's literally calling his streams rage casts because he's really justifiably an angry person with a strong voice, builds a following, you know, and then he has a network of people around him. So eventually they made a meme. Okay. They made a Diagolon meme. And it was something that they were putting out into the world in this really joking, ridiculous way. In fact, you know, the image of the Diagolon flag, you know, it has this white diagonal stripe up, you know, that goes across the flag. This whole idea is that the way they're being spun is that flag is for like white nationalism, for like whiteness taking over. When the joke was about a fake nation, the nation of Diagolon that they were making. And funnily enough, Jeremy Mackenzie made this meme with one of his best friends who is black. So the
You
whole
can't make
thing
it
is
up.
not, you can't even make it up. The deeper you go into it, the more absurd it becomes. But Diagolon has been painted into this extremist group that was used in part to justify the Emergencies Act. So this is, they're bringing back the rhetoric that they used to justify the Emergencies Act, claiming that there's this growing white nationalist group. So now they're doubling back. Now, the more
There's
specific, yeah, there it is. So, this is what they're trying to twist. And essentially there was a clip of some of the people from that Diagolon community, where they were just talking about how much pressure they need to put on Pierre Poilievre to actually address the issues that he's avoiding. Because there's those of us who understand this global war, the idea that globalization is being combined with communism to alter the geopolitical landscape, to centralize power towards a one world government. These ideas are something that's familiar to an increasing number of people since the whole world was impacted by globalist organizations like the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum. So, they have an awareness of the global fifth generation war. And they were having a conversation essentially saying, you know what, our job is to pressure Poilievre to actually speak to those things that he won't speak to in this war. So they're trying to twist it, saying that Diagolon is admitting that they're manipulating Poilievre according to their whims. And so the fact that he won't denounce them is being played alongside this clip to say, look, they're admitting they're manipulating him, and here he is not denouncing them. Obviously, Diagolon is influencing his whole campaign. That's the lowdown.
I mean, nobody can break it down. That's a great breakdown. So one comment on that, this white supremacy thing. Jordan Peterson mentioned this when the Nazi flag and the white supremacy was brought up at the trucker convoy. He's like, oh yeah, there's a huge white supremacy problem in Canada, one of the most diverse nations in the history of the world. The huge white supremacy problem. Like, how do they even have the nerve to reference this? It's insane. But people do believe it about the States, which is also absurd. Yes. White supremacy is a joke in the States. There is maybe a couple, groups that are in their barn, hanging out, maybe putting on a KKK hat or whatever the hell those things were. But it's irrelevant. There's no large faction of white supremacists. And every time we've seen something that seems like a white supremacist march, they all look like feds. All right. There's no, right. Like it's
so common. Silly. Yeah, it's super common. Well, you look at the story of Richard Biltzko. He was the principal here in Toronto who was forced into a DEI workshop. This guy was like a left-wing principal. They called him a racist because he refused to agree with them that Canada was the most racist nation in the world. He was so impacted by being called a racist in front of all his staff and all these people, he killed himself.
Holy shit. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is a huge,
that's what these people
story.
do, man. They're bullies, dude. They're bullies. The leftists are bullies, and they think they're doing it in the name of justice. And their actions and their what's it called when you put somebody's address online and when you dox them, they do this stuff, with no remorse. They don't realize the repercussions of this. But all right, so white supremacy thing, nonsense. The Diagolon effect on Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre, look, would be a million times better than Trudeau. He actually is a competent. He actually understands economics to a certain extent, but he's actually very well adept with economics, and he was the economics minister, the finance minister under Stephen Harper, if I'm not mistaken. And the country was doing quite well under Stephen Harper. But so there are aspects of Pierre Poilievre, though, where he doesn't go, I would say, in my opinion, doesn't go far enough in terms of liberty in Canada and pushing freedom in Canada. And, there's a whole aspect of the shots, which we'll talk about later as well, the AstraZeneca shots, stay tuned. But there's a lot of things that he's not, right enough about. On the right enough about, let's say, conservative enough about. He's left-leaning in a lot of ways. So the Diagolon thing, we've spoken about this. Pierre Poilievre, we have some problems with him, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. I don't think anyone is really going to fit the bill. to be honest. I know there's the argument that the PPCs, are more aligned with those things. You could argue it both ways, but I think the point is that on this battlefield, we have to measure to what extent is Poilievre at the behest of the Uniparty, right? This left-wing and right-wing influence that is really just submitting itself to this globalist agenda. To what extent does he give into that? But to what extent do we need his victory, strategically speaking? Because if we divide the vote using PPC, it is a tough call. I got to say, like on this battlefield and with how captured Canada is, I think we need to tread very carefully. But I do understand both arguments.
Right. Yeah. So I think that you have to do, there's some baby steps to be taken. And this is a good first step to bring back conservatism in Canada and to bring back common sense and not ridiculous. Like it'll be so refreshing to actually hear policy affects actual policy in the House of Commons. Now, everything that the left does is all repetitive, regurgitated rhetoric that is very well scripted, and they evade every single question. The House of Commons, these question periods have become an absolute shit show and a joke. We're gonna watch. We should watch this now. Actually, the clip of the question period where Pierre Poilievre calls Trudeau a wacko.
Let's get into this. So this has been going viral. I think for different reasons. In the one sense, a lot of people are looking at this, clip of Poilievre in terms of him standing his ground, and I think there's some merit to that. Other people are just kind of abhorred. They're terrified at how boring and lame Canadian politics are.
Right, but it's just silly. So this is the shorter clip. Let's watch this one. And this is what really led up to.
Put an end to this WACKO policy by this WACKO prime minister. No.
You hear the Speaker of the House saying, no, not okay. For context, can we pause this for a sec? So the Speaker of the House was appointed by Trudeau, right? So he's a liberal through and through, and he's a very soft human being. Let's say I would say, but so clearly he has a partisanship that is going to be made very apparent right now when he's dealing with Pierre Poilievre. And to put a little bit of context to this, the discussion that is being had is about Ontario wanting to decriminalize heroin and fentanyl in Ontario, following the footsteps of BC, which did that. And Pierre Poilievre, prior to this clip, earlier on in the question period, is discussing the effects of those policies in BC, where there's a huge uptick. It's like 350% uptick in deaths related to fentanyl and heroin, and an absurd thing. So that's the context here. And this is where Pierre Poilievre is calling these policies WACKO policies and calls Trudeau a WACKO prime minister. And this is the reaction of the Speaker of the House. If we can.
A couple of things which are going on here today, which is not acceptable. And I ask all members, please, to control themselves. I'm going to ask two things. One, I'm going to ask the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to withdraw that term, which is not considered parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I replace WACKO with extremist. He is an
The Honourable Member to please. I'm going to ask the Leader of the Opposition once again to just withdraw that comment, please. And I'll invite the Honourable Member.
So to replace WACKO with, he wants him to retract the whole statement.
Withdraw that comment.
The whole comment.
I'll replace it with radical Baptist policy.
I am not asking to replace. I'm asking.
So he doubles down here, Pierre Poilievre. Good on him.
Mr. Speaker, I replace the word WACKO with extremist.
Which is a reasonable commentary to make.
Yes, it's reasonable capitulation.
And so he mutes the whole.
One last time.
All right, there you go.
to please
He's acting like a
withdraw
last time.
that
He's acting like a
comment. Simply
freaking
withdraw that comment.
a liberal teacher.
I simply withdraw and replace with the aforementioned adjective.
There you go. Double down, Pierre. It's still a clown show, right? This whole thing is a clown show.
Yeah.
I have to name you for disregarding the authority of the chair. Pursuant to the authority granted to me by Standing Order 11, I order you to withdraw from the House and from any participation by video conference for the remainder of this day's sitting.
So Pierre gets kicked out.
Okay.
They don't show the footage here, but the whole Conservative Party leaves as well.
Okay, so there's a whole bunch to unpack here. I think it's obvious to me. It's obvious to me that there is a political bias coming from the Speaker of the House, which should not be the case. But even beyond that, I really want to point to the use of vague rules and laws in this situation, because there's the means by which he was able to insert his political bias is something that we really need to be clear about. The fact that the Speaker of the House can use the vague notion of something just not being parliamentary, like he can just say that language is not parliamentary. You're gone. To me, like, this is an incredibly vague and frightening.
But it's very telling. It's very telling, right? Of everything liberals do. It's all feelings. It's all abstract.
That's right.
And they mold things based on what serves them.
So look at what he's doing. He's taking this vague idea of something not being a parliamentary word, WACKO, which is the word. So first of all, the fact that the word WACKO is somehow so abhorrent that it should not be uttered within the halls of Parliament is so insane. And it's such a weird hang up to have. But then even on top of that, the fact that the Speaker of the House can apply such a vague rule at their own whims is so deeply corrupt. And it would be deeply corrupt if a right-wing, leaning Speaker of the House was doing it. It's just wrong.
Yeah, it's not. It's absurd. But so somebody wrote a comment here and saying that they wouldn't do he wouldn't do this when Trudeau doesn't answer the questions. This is something I've spoken about before. The House Speaker right now is just not a talking head. He's like a figurehead. They don't do anything. All they do is say silence, order in the order. Don't say words like WACKO. The real job of the Speaker of the House is to ensure that the politicians are answering questions. It's not a decorum position. It's not a grandstand. It's not a position that is just for show.
Yes.
It's actually their role to enforce. And if you do not answer questions, the Canadian people, the whole point of this is the Canadian people have the right to understand what policies are being put into place, why they're putting these policies into place, what is their rationale behind this. There's an absurdity going on so many levels here. And the decorum aspect of the House of Parliament is ridiculous too. It drives me nuts when they say the right honorable prime minister. And yes, I got it. It's fine. It's a historical thing. Get over yourselves. Like, what the fuck, man?
It's British. The problem, this is British politics. This is the problem, we're just stuck with British politics here. We're stuck with all that stuff, even though, I don't think the majority of the population really feels connected to that legacy. It's just kind of like copy pasted from Britain onto Canadian life in a really awkward and kind of stupid way. And yeah, it does kind of make it so that we don't really get to the heart of issues. To be policing language on that level is not just stupid. It's also just the way of the woke, to be policing people's language, saying you can't use that word. No, that's a scary, that's a trigger word. It's the same thing basically. So to have the halls of Parliament tied up in that really just presents this idea of a totally inept system of government. And I think that honestly is a weapon in and of itself to make the government seem like this totally useless thing so that people check out and they're less politically engaged, in my opinion.
I mean, it's just like we're at a banana republic stage right now. And you're right. The whole ties to the British monarchy. I mean, that's something that needs to be revisited. I don't think it's priority right now, but seriously, enough of this. There's so many things, and especially speaking to Dan Oak at the Lakeshore Sovereign Assembly, shout out to them, doing great work. When you really realize what the foundation of the country is, and we uphold all these decorum things that are just silly. And
Okay,
we
so
need to get
here's
past
the
a lot
thing.
of these things.
This is a good segue, actually, because you look at all this obsession with decorum and proper behavior that they're enforcing in the
Right,
halls of
okay.
Parliament right now. So we're in our next segment, we're going to get into another scandal with Trudeau. And I want to point out that it's so absurd that decorum is policed in the halls of Parliament, but then Trudeau can get away with immoral nonsense. So we're going to get into
Immoral,
that.
corrupt, illegal,
Corrupt.
just money funneling. It's insane.
You're right,
Over and over again. All
I'm
right,
being
so
kind,
let's go.
but yeah, we're going to jump to a commercial from our sponsor, and then we'll get into Trudeau's latest scandal.
Yeah,
blah,
we
blah,
got-
blah, 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 blah. What are you talking about? Here, have some freedom to vote. Man, the Constitution is awesome. Type 1A.
Welcome back to the Liberty North Show. So let's get into Trudeau's latest scandal. Michael, please teach me about what he's up to. I don't know if I'm hip to this one. It's hard to keep up with.
You know what? We'll start with the newest one. So production, if you go to 7.3, the Lobbying Act, we can play that clip. You have Michael Barrett, who is breaking down what is happening in this latest scandal. Let's see. Are we able to get this? No, it would be 7.3, the third one. Lobbying Act, new scandal.
What's the essential breakdown of this?
Nope, not that one. Let's see. Maybe I can get it. All right, hold on, folks. We got a good one coming. So there's one of his, you know what? I have it ready to go here. I will play this.
I don't hear anything. I'm not sure if there's sound.
There is potential illegality with respect to the Lobbying Act, and of course questions of the Conflict of Interest Act and the Conflict of Interest Code for members. Minister Boissonnault lost his seat in the 2019 election, then an MP, and he restarted his company Xenex to lobby the Trudeau government, that for whom he was previously an MP. The minister tried to shield this from the public by hiding behind his business partner and lobbyist. Their only client was the Edmonton International Airport. They received $25 million in pandemic recovery funds in 2021, 1 month before he was named the Liberal candidate and just 2 months before the federal election. The meetings took place in 2021 and 2022 that helped bring in $110 million in federal grants to the Edmonton International Airport. So it was revealed that the minister and his lobbyist business partner still have ties. And in fact, Minister Randy Boissonnault withheld the name of the business that he was receiving payments from. And he failed to disclose the name of Navis Group, which was rebranded from his company. A bit of sleight of hand here, Chair. The trading name versus the corporate name. So someone would have to do a corporate records search to determine that this deception was happening. So this company that he's receiving payments from is simultaneously lobbying the government, including the finance department, for whom he was the associate finance minister. So they got direct access to the finance minister, the deputy prime minister, for a meeting on hydrogen fuel development. And within months of the meeting, Chair, the minister made an announcement at the Edmonton International Airport awarding local hydrogen fuel initiatives with $9.74 million in federal funds. So it's troubling. It's unacceptable. Obviously,
so we can pause this.
Just the Canadians would accept it.
So it's just this is a little bit it's a little bit convoluted. But basically, it's what is done over and over again, not just in Canada, in the States as well, right? Lobbying is, okay, there's a whole nother discussion of what lobbying actually does to a country. But in this case, you have this finance minister or the deputy finance minister who left office, set up his company, and started lobbying the government to give them contracts. And it's
shout
just
out
liberals keep doing this over and over again. It's just now they're getting caught, right? So they're being the conservatives seem to be auditing a little more and being a little more thorough in their investigations. But this is absurd. This is criminal. This is corrupt. This is just stealing tax dollars. How do these people then come on and call everybody racists, right?
Oh, it's unbelievable. You know, actually, quick shout out to McDonald Fern for the support on Facebook. Thank you very much. You know, there's a tactic here that he pointed to that I recently found out is very, very common. So it looks like a lot of these scandals using corporations like this, they do these slight name changes of companies. So they end up with multiple different corporate records. So, you know, there's another example. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Andy Lee, who's a special reporter for Rebel News. You know, she was exposing a whole number of different Canadian scandals recently where the same tactic was being used, where they were essentially creating slightly different spellings of their company's name to obscure transfers of power, to obscure funds, so that when you look up one company name, it has one record, but if you slightly change the spelling, there's a whole other corporate record that's enabled them to do other things. This looks like something that is not at all regulated. And so it looks like a loophole that probably in this whole lobby scheme, like you're pointing out, I bet it's really, really common.
Oh, absolutely. And we saw it too with Hunter Biden as well. And the Bidens having, 20 different holding companies. And you had, I can't remember his name, Byron Donalds, who exposed all of these holding companies that the Bidens were holding on to and funneling money through. And this happens all throughout politics. We have to gut our political systems, both in Canada and in the States, because they're so deeply corrupt. These people are aristocrats. These people are completely lobbied by these special interests. The Senate was supposed to be representative of the states. This is a Canadian show, so we won't get into it, but the Senate used to be appointed by state legislatures in the U.S. Now they are popularly elected, meaning that they have to run campaigns and they have to get hundreds of millions of dollars to run their campaigns. Where are they getting that from? Special interests. So let's get back to Canada. We are going to go over a couple more of Trudeau's scandals. We actually have a special guest waiting that is now ready to go, Mr. Fabian Garcia from Breakaway USA. We'd like him to come on and talk some shit about Trudeau.
Please
there we
help
go.
us.
Hey guys, how are you, Liberty North?
Mr. Fabian, there we go. Fabian is a member of Breakaway USA. He is a driving force of Breakaway USA. Glad to have you on, Fabian. Let's
Great
talk
to
some
be
shit.
here, guys. I'm excited.
Sir, I will never jump at the opportunity, or I will never skip an opportunity to talk shit about Trudeau.
Nah.
So this clip coming up is his name is Michael Barrett. He's an MP in Canada, and he goes through a number of Trudeau's scandals. Just so we can recap. Let's run the clip. Oh, we don't have sound. We don't have sound. Let's see. Get there in a second. Hold on a sec, folks.
Billions of dollars with his Derek, your conservative shadow ethics and accountable government. It's been an incredibly busy year for me holding Justin Trudeau and his government of serial lawbreakers to account. After 8 years, it's easy to see that Justin Trudeau and his NDP Liberal government aren't worth the cost, but I want to take just 90 seconds and list some of the scandals that we've dealt with this year. Ready? Well, it started with Justin Trudeau's McKinsey contracts that cost Canadians billions of dollars with his friend Dominic Barton. We had the $8 million barn, $8 million for a barn, if you can believe it. The $54 million ArriveCan app that had two guys in a basement pocketing $11 million. We had Beijing's interference in our democratic institutions. We had the scandal with the speaker who recognized an SS officer in the House of Commons. Then we had the replacement speaker who's been sanctioned for speaking at a Liberal Party convention when he's supposed to be nonpartisan. We had his cabinet minister's sister-in-law named as the interim ethics commissioner so that they could try and get a break on some of the findings of guilt that they've had. We had Mary Ng, who awarded contracts to her bestie, costing taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. We had Ahmed Hussein's staffer sister get lucrative contracts from his office. We had the Prime Minister staying in $6,000 a night hotel rooms in London, complete with a butler, while Canadians are lined up at food banks in record numbers. We had his vacation to villas owned by a family friend and Trudeau Foundation donor that, of course, was billed to taxpayers. We had the Green Slush Fund that's $1 billion, and we already know that $150 million has been misappropriated, lining the pockets of Liberal insiders. We've got their billions of dollars spent on the battery plant contracts that are going to fund replacement workers from overseas. And we have the Trudeau Foundation donors, of course, coming from the dictatorship in Beijing. I think I'm just out of time there, but we're not even done this year yet. And you can count on Canada's Conservatives to hold Justin Trudeau and his government to account in the new year. But for this year, I want to wish you all a safe, happy, healthy.
All right. That is just this year. That is not even.
It's crazy. It's like what he can get away with. You know, it's like there is no scandal apparently, or no number of scandals that would actually dethrone this man. I don't see anything indicating that a scandal could actually remove him from power.
Oh no, and the Conservatives seem completely impotent in trying to do this. So I don't know. It seems very simple, right, Fabian? You're not a Canuck, but you can see from the south of the border what a shit show we have here.
Listen, having been in Canada many times since 2016, I will say Canada was my favorite place to visit, specifically Toronto. And now I don't know what in the hell is going on in that country. I do know because I keep up with your news. But if I were just a regular person, having never been to Canada, I wouldn't know what a wonderful country it was up until the last few years. And I get the sentiment that I'm not the only person who feels like that, especially people who live in Canada.
Well, we've seen Joe Rogan say the same thing. He's like, I won't go up to Canada anymore. That Justin Trudeau, so the whole world knows what the heck's going on. They see Trudeau on the world stage finally for what he is, this squirming rat. Ugh.
Yeah, and it's true. And well, him being exposed on the world stage is kind of it's an odd experience in a lot of ways. You know, I was talking about this the other day in a take that I was doing. It's like, it is really bad here in the sense that some of the most extreme policies, some of the most, neo-Marxist far left policies are being implemented here. And so Canada is sort of seemingly test grounds for what happens when we go all the way left. This is what Bill Maher said the other day. He did a monologue about Canada, and he was saying that Canada is unchecked leftism. And you can see this is what happens when leftism is given free rein. So there's that element of it. But then I also have to contrast that with my daily life. And sometimes I kind of laugh because I see the internet outrage machine freaking out about Canada, but I still go through my day in the city and it's pretty normal, and so it's like, we want to be mindful. A balance, yes. There's a balance, right? We want to be mindful of how the outrage is being used. It's true that Canada is an example of this, but should Canadians be watching, clips of the worst stuff happening in our country and building up outrage? I don't know. To me, it's deal with the way this is manifest in your community. And there are ways it's manifest in my community. Don't get me wrong.
Localism for sure. But so I'll push back on that a little bit. Cost of living in Canada is unsustainable. It really is. The increase in cost of living, they'll say that inflation is 8%. I've seen the cost of butter double. I've seen the cost of beer, maybe not beer, but I've seen that. But beer is actually a good reference for me who plays hockey and plays in a beer league. But so I've seen the cost of beer at least go up 50% across the board. Pabst Blue Ribbon. I don't know if you guys what Pabst Blue Ribbon is. That used to be $1 a beer. It's now $10 for 6. It's so that's not the best reference, but point being that is a blanket condition of what's happening in the economy. And so That is there's very simple reasons for that. And we're not going to talk about that now. We can have a whole nother episode about that. But a couple of them are the printing of $400 billion in the pandemic, which, and just handing it out to everybody, increasing the money supply by almost 50%. That is the definition of inflation. The artificially low interest rates is going to inflate assets. No question about it. These are just bad policies by incompetent people that are worried about their feelings more than they are about reality and about actual economic policy and political philosophies.
Well,
right?
and they buy what Trudeau is selling with a lot of these issues, right? Because he's reframed this many, many times. Sometimes he'll say, Canada in the global economy is better in the following ways, and he'll like pull it up to the global narrative. Or he'll flip it back and be like, yes, we're all recovering from COVID. COVID was very hard. And, liberals have worked hard to get us through this. So he flips it around where he's never accountable. And it's this ability to completely dodge all accountability at all times, no matter what, that he relies on over and over again. And to me, I guess, the people that still support him, and it is a small radical minority, right? This is the least popular prime minister in all of Canadian history. But there is a radicalized group that does support him. I guess they buy those narratives when he shifts it to the global and blames COVID, all that. They just shrug and take it in.
I feel like you're always going to have this subsection of the population that believes whatever is spewed out of the official channels of the government, but it's having less and less of an effect with things like Twitter. I mean, I couldn't believe, when I go and I see Michael's Instagram, he's telling me you guys can't see news unless it's like funded by the state. You said that the supply of money has gone up 50%. We've printed about 30% of all the dollars ever existing in America in the period of 16 months or so here in America. So Canada and America are following the same path. I think the difference is that America has that revolutionary spirit imbued in it, where we fight a lot more than the Canadians, which has typically been a peaceful country, thankfully so. But you're starting to see Canadians starting to wake up with a truckers convoy, with all this stuff happening now, with you guys starting the Liberty North show and, showing tons of people what's really happening in Canada. It's really waking up. And I love to see that spirit, just kind of infused into regular Canadian people who want their regular country back. I mean, I want to go to a Tim Hortons and buy, what do they call it? A double or whatever.
Yeah.
Double. And I want to come back. So you guys need to fix things up there for me and for everyone else.
Well, it's kind of like, we've got that tension between the crazy stuff that's going on, but how effectively it's waking people up. And there's always that, right? Where
everybody's seeing through it now. It's my crazy leftist uncle, who I love. Hopefully you don't see this. He's still in that. He watches, CBC, and he gets the official channels, which are literally would not exist without the $1 billion a year they give. That clip of Trudeau saying, trying to say a joke, which is so out of touch. You know what I'm talking about, where he's like, when
he admits to they'll never say bad things about me because they millions of dollars. He just says it.
Billions, 600 million. So, and now it's up at like 1.2 billion, and they're just losing money, the CBC. But so, yeah, he's like, you don't get stellar headlines without greasing the wheels a little bit. We fund them $600 million a year. I mean, these people are he's out of touch with reality, really. And for him not to have resigned by now, with all of the just barrage of shit talking that he gets online, he's so sheltered from this. It's really, it's scary to see that somebody can be so out of touch with reality.
Well, let me ask you guys a question, because this is something that I've been wondering about. Well, we all know the whole neo-Marxism, critical race theory stuff in America is sticking because America had slaves back, a few hundred years ago. And I know that in Canada that didn't really work, so they were using the native thing to make the whole oppressor oppress stuff. Is that still sticking around, or have people just kind of said, nah, not working here?
No, there's lots of that. So
there's lots of it. It's falling apart, though.
Well, but so the new acronym, right, is 2S LGBTQ plus IA, something like that. The 2S.
And he says it every time. He says it every time, the whole thing.
Every time.
2S
plus. Yeah. Yeah. So the 2S is two-spirited. right? And the whole idea is they've put it at the beginning to uplift the oppressed native population. That's why it's technically like bigotry to say LGBTQ plus 2S or whatever, right? It's virtue signaling to bring the 2S to the beginning.
So now you're
I mean,
bigoted
exactly
if
what
you
we're talking about.
refer to the oppressed people in the wrong order now, and that order was changed capriciously by the Trudeau administration.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. So yeah, it is really strong. But here's the thing: Trudeau, when he originally got in power, Trudeau made all sorts of promises about uplifting the oppressed, First Nations communities, and it's insane too because like there are still communities without clean drinking water in Canada. These First Nations communities. He did not do any of what he said he was going to do. They're still living in horrid conditions. In fact, there was a point during COVID when these communities were just sent body bags. It is disgusting how they're treated. But here's the thing. They're treated that way by the government, the Trudeau government, that is constantly using their oppression to drive this neo-Marxism. So you see...
So you're going to tell me the government really may not care about these people the same way how black crime is up, even though we had years and years of the summer of love and defunding the police? How is that possible, guys? It doesn't make any logical sense to me.
That's
we
right.
We should be in a utopia right now. You're right.
Yeah, we should be, according to them. But I think either they're intentionally destroying things or they're really bad at what they claim they're doing.
They're incompetent through and through. The people that we deal with that are the face are incompetent. Trudeau, there's something happened recently. I can't remember what bill it was, but he was literally like, "Oh, I didn't read that bill." I don't know if he can read. I'm not. This is. I don't read good. This is not. That's a bit of hyperbole, but I can almost guarantee you this guy is not reading these bills that are being passed. He is all superficial, and he is being given a script. George Soros has penetrated him as well, not just Klaus Schwab. And George Soros actually.
He's penetrated the cabinet. The
cabinets. I think that they're both in there. Yeah. As horrible of an image that is to picture. Sorry, everybody watching. I think both Klaus Schwab and George Soros with his saggy face, let's say, is very much has a big say in Canada. Unfortunately, he also was like Chrystia Freeland, that lunatic. I don't know if we can.
Wow, that girl just spoke out. Or
we can't say WACKO, so I don't know if we could say lunatic, but she's
like be parliamentarian.
That's a tweaker if I ever saw one, and I grew up in East LA in the '90s, so that's a tweaker right there.
my God, I mean, she's got to be on some kind of. It might be legal stuff, but she's on some kind of stimulant or Xanax.
Think about who knows? I mean, think about being around Trudeau all day. You're gonna have to be on some kind of medication, man. Whatever Hitler was on. I don't know if you can say that word in Canada. Sorry, guys, I got you a strike. But she's probably on the same stuff.
We forgive you. Yeah, I mean, I think Hitler was straight up on speed, so maybe she's on that. But that video of her tweaking in the back is insane.
So should we hop to the next segment, boys?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So we have a little quick commercial break, and is that right, production team? And then we'll be back in a second.
Yeah.
All right, we're back. Good to have Fabian on the Liberty North show for the first time.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna have to have. Yes, sir. We're gonna have to have everybody. Shout out to Breakaway USA. We are doing some awesome things. Check out Breakaway USA on all platforms. On most platforms, it's Breakaway_USA. If you're watching, check out our Telegram, because that is where we can not self-censor. Right, everywhere where if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we have to self-censor to a certain extent to get our message out. Telegram is a great source for us to be able to just blah and say everything we want to say, and Rumble as well. If you use Rumble, we're on Rumble, Breakaway USA. So check us out. Also, the Liberty North show. We are on all platforms as well. Liberty North Canada, at Liberty North Canada. Simon, what are we talking about here? We're talking about this most recent
investment in electric vehicles.
So the Canadian government, Trudeau particularly, these people are obsessed and completely just in a climate change cult. And there is no, I don't think one of these parliamentarians on the left can do like a basic chemistry test. Meanwhile, they know that the world's coming to an end because of carbon dioxide. So they're so deeply, everything they do, everything that Trudeau stands for comes back to climate change, comes back to climate policies. His freaking carbon tax that he's trying to put on at a time when Canadians are economically struggling in a way that they've never have. Canada has been a country where people have been immigrating here for opportunity, for prosperity. We have some of the most rich natural resources, sources of natural resources in the world. Canada should be one of the countries with the highest standard of living. We are run by morons and clowns. But so before we get, so let's get into this video and then we'll have a chat about it, Simon.
Yeah, this is
let's
always frustrating. Let's do it.
Years ago, we bet big on electric vehicles. We know the whole world's going to be driving them one day. We want them to be built here in Canada. We want the jobs and the great salaries that go with them going to Canadian workers. So we invested in critical minerals, in clean tech, in the renewable energy that the industry is going to need. And we put out a call to businesses. We have the resources, we have the government support, we have the workers needed to build EVs. And Honda answered. They're going to build electric vehicles completely in Canada, from frames to batteries to engines. I'm standing in the middle of what will be Canada's first full electric vehicle supply chain. Years ago,
there it is.
I'm glad that it restarted there and he walks through that door. What an absolute loser.
Okay,
he walks through that door like starting. It's like he's just.
I know the way they film it all is very cheese. It's gross, but it's for a specific group that is captured by him. It's like middle-aged to elderly women, right? So they're very captured by him. That's why he makes content like that. It's obviously not.
He's the prime minister and he's like acting as a salesman for electric vehicles for Honda. What are you doing, man? And so the $5 billion price tag. Go ahead.
I mean, there's a lot done with the electric vehicle thing. There's really a lot of moving parts. First of all, you just have the climate change narrative is what's used to drive the idea that we need to change all vehicles in Canada to electric, to make Canada gas powered car free by like 2030 or something insane. So it's being used to do this. But then there's the other side of this, which is that it doesn't actually help the environment in the way that they claim it does. It doesn't actually, in the sense that the way you have to mine for the batteries for electric vehicles is extremely destructive, environmentally speaking. You have to decimate the land completely to get the lithium for these, electric vehicles. But then the final thing that really bothers me is that in the end, this is going to enrich China, because China is the one that has the capacity to process the lithium for all of these batteries. So we're going to end up being reliant on China for Canadians to drive cars. Does that seem like a good idea? I don't know.
Not to mention that the horrible working conditions of these people that are mining this stuff like cobalt and lithium, all this stuff. EVs, you know what? I'm going to quickly share my screen here to show you what the reality is of these EV vehicles and how they would not exist. Tesla has created a great product. The car is, if you've been in a Tesla, it's an incredible product, right? Like it's just so sleek and well done. Whether it's the EV aspect of it, I don't think is the biggest seller of it. It's just a sweet car, right? But so this is Ford that is trying to, and Honda, I'm sure, is the same. Now that they got a $5 billion investment from the Canadian government, from Canadian taxpayers, they might be doing all right. but Ford just reported a massive loss on every electric vehicle it sold. Ford's vehicle unit reported that losses soared in the first quarter to 1.3 billion or 132,000 for each of its 10,000 vehicles it sold in the first 3 months of the year.
Wow.
Electric vehicle unit reported that losses soared in the first quarter 1.3 billion on this EV nonsense. I mean, this is
scheme. This is a huge, the climate change narrative is such a money laundering scheme on so many levels. And, you know, the way that it's being tied into the neo-Marxism in terms of like the indigenous peoples, we have a video actually that references that, I think, right? Where Trudeau he speaks to the indigenous issue with Honda. Let's see, I think there's a Twitter link we have right here.
So here he's talking, in this one, I believe he's talking about things being made in Canada. And you're right. I think he does reference.
Okay, let's get into this one.
Yeah.
Canada is and should be seen as one of those places that if you're buying something that was made in Canada or created in Canada or invented in Canada or whatever, anywhere in the world, you should be able to say, okay, there's a maple leaf on it. If it was made in Canada, I know that it was done well, that it paid well the workers, it's environmentally responsible, it's probably done in partnership with Indigenous peoples, or at least in respect. Like, that's a brand that as people around the world, customers and consumers around the world are looking at, okay, I want to be reliable in what I'm buying, I want to be thoughtful about what I'm doing. People should feel that if you're buying something in Canada, that's a niche we should own, that is a good brand that people are comfortable, like buying Italian shoes or Japanese electronics. Whatever you buy from Canada, it should be okay. Yeah, no, this is going to be good quality. Canada.
Okay, so this is really important. We got to break this down. This
is so incompetent on so many levels.
But this is a perfect example of something, guys. What he's describing is Klaus Schwab's stakeholder capitalism, right? So Klaus Schwab is looking to completely reformat capitalism, and it's this idea of stakeholder capitalism, and it really is a very sort of communist socialist idea. And this is what Trudeau's describing, and it's very tied to ESG scores, environmental, social, and governance scores. The companies have to prove that they're like giving back to the indigenous communities, right? They have to prove that they're giving indigenous people jobs. They have to prove that they're like helping reduce climate change impact. So all of that is tied into this idea of stakeholder capitalism. So when Trudeau says people want, they want to be with companies who are like doing nice things with the indigenous people,
it's just
and
wrong.
That's what's going to like take companies further. This is what he's saying. This is the system they're trying to set up. It's a corporate social credit system where the companies have to fall in line with all the things that Trudeau is stating. Then the companies, they get access to liquidity and they get government permission to exist. This is stakeholder capitalism, where they tie the social credit score of the company to what they're doing, and they want to bring that down to the citizen level. That's stakeholder capitalism. So everything he's describing in this video can be directly tied to the World Economic Forum's stakeholder capitalism agenda. It's a perfect example.
And what BlackRock was doing, right? But look at BlackRock, the biggest, ETF or fund in the world. Look how they pulled back from their ESG stuff, because the companies that they were doing ESG stuff for, or they were forcing into their ESG policies, were getting destroyed. Look at Target. Look at these companies look at Bud Light. They put these Harvard grad socioeconomic social studies graduates at the head of companies, or at the head of their marketing. They start marketing to trans people Bud Light. They start. This was crazy. How they thought it was a good idea. How do you have somebody that can?
But I'll explain how. It's ESG scores itself, because the governance aspect, your governance score as a company is what minorities do you have in which positions, and how much power do the positions have. So it's not enough to have like a minority person in the mailroom. Your governance score goes up if your director of marketing is like an indigenous disabled trans person. That's like amazing.
Think about, that's the intersectionality at its best, which is
but normally, but this is the issue, is that normally people who come from that intersectional viewpoint, end up being neo-Marxists themselves. So this is what I'm saying.
Of course.
This is how these companies end up with like their marketing teams doing these woke, insane things because they are mandated by ESG scores to put the neo-Marxists in the positions of power that lead to these marketing failures. So the whole thing is a snake eating its own tail. It's insane.
It really is. I don't even know where to start with a lot of this stuff. It's just it's so absurd. But so you know what? We're running out of time. Let's we have one more segment we want to get to.
Yeah, quick break, and then we get into our last segment.
Let's do a quick break. Yes, sir. All right.
Oh, yeah. And for those of you watching, you should go to my Instagram and check out my latest sketch with Freedom Water. You'll like it.
Oh yeah, your sketches with Freedom Water. You know what? We'll end it off.
We'll start using those as commercials.
We'll end it off with actually we'll look at it. We'll take a look before we leave.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna go to my take on the Badlands news brief. So just a heads up, I do regular takes for Badlands Media. Often Monday to Friday, I'll have takes in there. So I did a take for today's Badlands News Brief on this AstraZeneca story. Man, it's pretty interesting, I got to say. AstraZeneca has had to... They've had to really admit to the harm in court that their COVID vaccine did. So, this is not a claim that this is doing this rampantly. This is about what is specifically occurring in the court in reference to their vaccine. So it's no conspiracy theory. But here's the little breakdown, right? They've admitted in court that for the first time, the COVID jab can cause a deadly blood clotting side effect. So them saying this in court is meaningful because there are people in the UK, this is where this particular case is happening, who either they lost a family member or they've been severely injured. So there's some justice starting to move forward with the admittance of this. So I'm going to read my take and then we'll just unpack it a little bit. So I always think of the chaos and ambiguity element of fifth generation warfare when I contemplate the damage of the COVID jab bioweapon. It would certainly be highly effective to develop a bioweapon designed to result in such a wide variety of illnesses that span out over such a long period of time that tracking the origins back to the injection would become impossible. This is chaos and ambiguity. With this particular tactic in place, admitting to a 1 in 50,000 chance of severe injury or death actually acts as a cover for companies like AstraZeneca. In fact, the more media attention they can draw to that and how responsible they're currently being, the more this can take attention away from the rise in mortality rates in every country that mandated the injections. Consider how this small admittance by AstraZeneca compares to the massive red pill that RFK Jr. just recently dropped on Bill Maher. He stated that 25% of Americans believe they personally know someone who died from the COVID jab, with 50% of Americans believing it causes severe injury and death. That is a huge portion of the public. I don't think they're ever going to be able to thread this needle. Even admitting to killing a small number of people fractures the dam, holding back all the rage from the forceful mandates. We may never be able to calculate the impact of this attack. However, the flip side is big pharma losing its authority over public minds and bodies. This resulting health freedom movement is spreading as companies like AstraZeneca are put on trial for corruption. So let me say that nurturing health, freedom, and medical sovereignty in ourselves and others is a most noble means of honoring our fallen neighbors, family, and friends. Because after all, the problem didn't begin with corrupt pharmaceutical companies. The problem began with us giving away our authority on health and wellness at all. That is my take on this. What do you think, brother?
As usual, Simon, your takes are fire. So yes, the fifth generation aspect, the fifth generation warfare aspect of it. So this has come full circle over a 4-year period, right? Day one, and people are still taking boosters. Like there's people that are just will never. It's the Yuri Bezmenov. We can keep coming back to it. The ideological subversion. People are so deeply brainwashed is the colloquial way of putting it, but ideologically subverted or just indoctrinated with these ideas that just go to their being, right? They identify with these ideas. They identify with the idea of wearing a mask.
Yep.
That's them. It's like, I'm a mask wearer, right? That's, you guys don't wear this is what I do. And this is what the left does across the board with their ideas, right? They're pro-choice. They identify with this idea. Any amount of proof or any amount of logic will not change their idea about that. They are against guns. Doesn't matter if we give them proof that, law-abiding citizens, there's less crime in area. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They don't care about the truth about police brutality and how a lot of it is this manufactured media thing that just they don't care. They don't care that more white people are killed by cops than black people, that 50% of the crime in America is caused by black people when they're 7% of the 14% of the population, but 7. Anyways, they're so brainwashed that they will never admit to being wrong. You see it in Trudeau. Trudeau in the last 8 years, with all of the ridiculous policies and all the harm they've caused throughout Canada, the shutdowns, the printing of money, has never once even suggested that he was slightly wrong. Ever.
That's right. No accountability.
We're dealing with people that are sociopaths. He's a sociopath. He's not a real human being, right?
But this is the point. People who said, you know what, and this is not conspiratorial people who said, I'm not comfortable taking this. It's experimental. There are risks. I don't want to take the risk. I have values that don't allow me to take this risk. Now you have AstraZeneca saying, okay, yeah, sometimes what we made kills people. Okay, so let's go back to all of us who said, you know what, I don't want to take that. I don't feel safe doing it. So we were called terrorists. We were called Nazis. We were shamed and attacked and ostracized because we didn't want to take the risk that now in court we're being told is real. This is
by our government.
That's right.
By our government, people that are supposed to represent us. The Trudeau comment we've come back to many times where he's talking in French and he's saying these people that are anti-jab are usually racists and misogynists. And it's like, bro, look at the trucker convoy. Families with kids and huge communities.
And it was vaccinated and unvaccinated people. It was
just
both
don't
vaccinated.
mandate. If somebody wants to take something, let them do their research. Let them have informed consent. And then the cherry on top is he comes out afterwards and says, "We never forced anything." Just like what
worst.
I can't.
But
I can't.
But the light
it's
at the end
time
of
for
the
him
tunnel-
to f off and recede into the background or whatever. He needs to go.
I know, but he is what we have right now, so we just got to keep calling it out for real.
I mean, that's all we can do at the moment, right? But there are other avenues that like again, Dan Oak and the Lakeshore Sovereign Assembly. If you guys are interested in fighting back, the Lakeshore Sovereign Assembly, Dan Oak, Akwasi, also True North Guardians Alliance, these guys, we've had 2 talks with them. Check them out on YouTube. They are actually doing the boots on the ground and bringing the court cases to these corrupt judges and pointing out that this system, the government itself, is illegitimate. And they're doing it through the systems channels to then be able to prove that they are incompetent, corrupt criminals. So check them out. Lakeshore Sovereign Assembly doing awesome work. Check out our talk with them. We go into a lot of detail.
Huge. Massive conversations. Really, really important information, honestly, to understand, because what they're doing is they're testing all aspects of the legal system for corruption, and then they're finding that they're corrupt. But what they're doing is very strategic. So I think it's really worth listening to and understanding.
Yeah. So we want to close off, guys. If anybody, if you've been around, if you've stuck around, or if you're just tuning in here, well, we'll be on again. We're going to go live every Wednesday evening. Time may vary a little bit, but we'll post it. Follow us on all socials, Liberty North at Liberty North Canada on Instagram. Just because Liberty North was taken, who took our handle? I don't know. Well, we'll have to find it again. But at Liberty North Canada, and also follow Breakaway USA. Let's end off with just a commentary on Freedom 2.0. You want to show us your bottle? Which one are you drinking today?
Oh, we were gonna do the sketch.
Oh, right. Okay, let's play it. But so commentary on this first. So we'll show you a little Freedom 2.0 sketch that Simon has done. I think I love the devil one too. The devil one is hilarious. So Freedom 2.0, they are a company doing basically they're if you don't know what Freedom 2.0 is, they're a water company, and they have water bottles with these little funny sayings on them. Simon, can you?
Yes, sir.
I don't have my liberal tears with me today, but
Vote
they have
Freedom 2.0.
Vote Freedom 2.0.
Water for deplorables.
Liberal tears. Drink this or move to Canada.
Oh yeah, I got that one right here. Drink this or move to Canada. There we go.
So this is a company that is putting the money where their mouth is, and they're a very important part in fighting back in this war, in this culture war, because they are partnering with content creators like us and people that are exposing the nonsense. So they are unapologetically pro-freedom, pro everything conservative that we espouse, and they know that we are in this war, right? So they are partnering with people.
Yeah, and it's honestly
like
just
us.
really good water. You know, they have a really unique purification process where they use reverse osmosis and ultraviolet water filtration. So they're removing a lot of the impurities. So frankly, I'm really picky about water. I gotta say, I'm really sensitive to shitty water. So when I got my case of this, I just drank it. I waited to see. I was ready for my water sensors to go off, but it was actually damn clean. I gotta say, right away I knew it.
Yeah, you know what? I'll show. So we actually have a code.
Breakaway. Okay, so use Breakaway to get 15% off.
Here we go, and we'll put the link actually. But so if you support them, you're supporting us. You're supporting the whole movement, and their water is just awesome. So their filtration process is so important, because we'll talk about this another time. But fluoride is a huge problem in our water supplies, and that is another one that we'll talk about. We'll have a fluoride episode, and the fact that it's a neurotoxin. I don't know if we're going to get a strike for that, but it's just a fact that fluoride is a neurotoxin. Stop drinking tap water.
Well, here's the thing. One more thing I'll say on that. There are no studies showing that the ingestion of fluoride supports teeth. The topical use of it in dentistry, but the ingestion of it is not tied to bone health or teeth health or anything at all. So I don't know. Why would
you need to ingest it?
Exactly.
It's so absurd. And look, we'll talk about fluoride another time, because it's very important. But you need to stop drinking your tap water without filtering it properly. And there's good filtration systems. There's good, reasonably priced filtration systems. I use something called Santevia. It's a gravity filter, and it has fluoride filters. Get fluoride out of your water. But so there's absolutely no chemicals, none of these forever chemicals in this. Let's watch your clip, because I died of laughter. You know what? I don't know if I have.
Fucking this stupid conference. All they're serving here is this freedom water. Drink this water or move to Canada. Fine. I did say if Trump won, I would move to Canada. Whatever. Now I have to drink this racist water. I am so tempted to not even hydrate the whole time I'm here. Oh my God.
It's so accurate.
It's really good. Oh my God. I feel like I've never had real water before. But if someone finds out that I like it, oh my God, that's good. How did they even do that? I didn't realize that freedom tasted so good. Oh. Drinking a little too fast. I can't stop drinking freedom water. I need a constitution. Someone find me a constitution.
There you have it. Freedom water, and that skit is amazing.
There'll be more sketches to come, friends.
Freedom. The Mel Gibson Braveheart got me for sure. You got me on so many. Oh, I just got frozen in a very compromising position. All right, guys. Simon, great episode. We're gonna go every Wednesday. Bring you news about Canada. Thanks for coming along, folks.
Yeah. See you guys next week.
All right. Take care.
Under the Trudeau regime,
The New World Order agenda.
Canadian Insight.
With Without free thought, there's no free will. We can't even say that this is Democrats or Republicans.
That is not a left-wing, right-wing issue.
It's a World Economic Forum.